Hello, everyone. This is Micah History. Yes, without the two, I have just gone back to calling myself Micah History. And I am recording this on January the 1st to celebrate a new year. So, this is officially my first recorded video of the year. So, welcome everyone to What If the Roman Empire Never Fell, Part 4. Now, if you want to understand what's going on in this scenario, you guys have to watch part 1, part 2, and part 3 because otherwise you will be lost. So if you haven't already, go watch those videos. Watched? Alright, great. Because now we'll be moving on. So the year is 1294. Although the Roman Empire has reunited, it is not as powerful as it once was. And there is one country that has clearly recognized this. Because in this year, another war breaks out with England. A war that will last and ravage the land for another 9 years, although it ends in 1303 with nothing really having changed. However, a new century does not mean new opportunities. In fact, all it means is new dangers. Because in 1300, the Ottoman Sultanate emerges and begins expanding. Now, between 1304 and 1306, however, the Roman Empire has bigger priorities, as Bulgaria invades Rome, trying to take Constantinople, but failing. And so, the invasion ends in 1306. But how will the Romans react to this? Well, they decide to have another civil war, which breaks out in 1321, between Andronicus I and his grandson Andronicus II. And this civil war will last 7 years. However, the weakening of the Roman Empire will not go unnoticed, and in 1334, Serbia begins invading Roman territory. In 1337, England invades too, to dispute the succession of Andronicus II, who had murdered his brother. In 1341, Andronicus II finally dies, and another civil war breaks out over the succession of the guardianship of his son, John III. Between 1343 and 1348, Serbia under Stefan Dusan conquers most of Greece, taking advantage of the chaos. In 1346, he proclaims the Serbian Empire, while England really begins winning over Rome. In 1347, the Civil War ends, with John IV agreeing to rule for 10 years until John III's maturity. And so, we finally have peace. And the age of disasters for the Roman Empire is now behind it. Except, small problem. The following year, a new disease shows up known as the Black Death. And in the next 4 years, half the empire's population dies. Yes, half. So, how do the Romans react? As the Black Death is waning in 1352, what do the Romans decide to do? Well, John III decides to start another civil war to overthrow his regent, John IV, and his son Matthew. Priorities, I guess. In 1357, John III wins the civil war, but the empire is severely weakened, and the Ottomans have taken over Gallipoli. Between 1352 and 1371, Rome loses all their Balkan lands to the Ottomans except Constantinople. But not all is bad. During this time, a new movement emerges known as the Renaissance, beginning with Petrarch and his emphasis on humanism. And an interest begins in pagan civilizations and classical virtues for the first time in an entire millennium. And this is the birth of a new discipline known as the humanities. But, culture aside, there are more important things going on. In 1360, the war with England ends, with southeastern Gaul taken by England. Only 9 years later, war with England resumes, as the English raise taxes in Gaul for the war effort in the Castilian Civil War, and the people appeal to the Romans for help. But the Romans are too busy having, you predicted, another civil war, which breaks out in 1373 as John III's son Andronicus fails to overthrow him. And in 1376, however, Andronicus manages to imprison and overthrow John. But John is not having any of it. 1378, with Ottoman help, he regains the throne and moves to Lutetia, which was already the largest city. Lutetia being Paris, by the way, making it the capital as he starts losing control and wants more control over the Pope, who he then moves to Avignon. He also does this to avoid Ottoman control and the endless factionalism of the Greeks. They see this new pope as a puppet and reject the idea of the papacy as a political tool. And this finally breaks up the Christian church, which had been mostly united for so long, into two churches, the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now, you got to understand that by this time, the Roman Empire pretty much held no land there anyways. And this becomes the final rejection of the Greek Orthodox culture that had dominated the Roman Empire in favor of Roman Catholic Church culture, which from now on is asserted as the only culture of the empire, in opposition to the Greeks and the English. Now, in 1389, most of Gaul is retaken and peace with England is made. And so things are back to normal. Except in 1395, a massive Germanic invasion begins on the Romans' border. And the Germanic peoples, a people who Rome had been fighting for over a millennium, once again came to cause chaos. With this invasion lasting all the way up till 1402, it pushes the Romans back to the Rhine. And the Romans won't cross that river, for a while at least. Meanwhile, in 1399, amidst this invasion and chaos, a preacher named John Huss begins preaching. But in 1415, he is burned at the stake. What will happen next? What is the future for Rome? Well, you'll have to stay subscribed to find that out. If you like this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. See you next time.